name's Dennis Daly, and I'm an interviewer with the Public Library of Cincinnati and Hamilton County. And today I have the honor of interviewing Miss Margaret Brockhoff on March 13th, 2007 at the Cheviot Branch Library. Our camera operator today is Mr. Doug McGee. Ms. Brockhoff, thank you for doing this interview. It's an honor to meet you. And we were talking a little bit off camera, but we'd like to start off with if you could give us a little bit of background before you joined the service. Were you born in Cincinnati?
Yes, I was born in Cincinnati. I went to Cincinnati Public Schools. I graduated from Western Hills High School. And after that, I spent one year in business college, graduated from there, and then I went to work several small jobs, and then I ended up with the Kroger Company.
Okay.
And I worked for them some 35 years total before and after the war.
So business college, was that associated with the University of Cincinnati?
No,
or
that
something
was at
separate?
downtown.
Okay.
Now, also, before I went into service, I started a program at University of Cincinnati in business administration. I got partway through, then went into the service, and then after the service, we were given permission. They paid for our tuition, so I was able to finish my studies there, and I got an associate degree in biz ed.
Okay. What year did you graduate from high school?
39.
1939. And then you did a year at business school, and then you went to work at Kroger.
Well, yeah, I did a couple little jobs in between there.
Okay. And you went into the service in 1943?
Yes, in May of 43, I reported to Hunter College on the first Saturday in May, and then I was there for a
Now,
month.
if you could discuss a little bit, what led you, because obviously women were not required to sign up for the draft, so you did volunteer.
Yeah, well, my brother was in the service, so I was very interested.
Okay.
And I thought it was an opportunity to just get out and learn about life and about the world.
Sure. So you joined the Waves,
That's right.
and for our viewers out there, the Waves, was the branch of the Navy.
Women accepted for volunteer emergency service, and we weren't a part of the Navy.
Okay.
At that time, the Marines were also part of the Navy. And we got to Hunter College. We were only the 5th Regiment of Waves, so we were quite new. They didn't have Waves trained to drill us and do all that sort of thing. So they brought Marines in from Paris Island, South Carolina, sergeants no less, to drill us.
So your basic training was done by Marine drill sergeants?
Yes. And the Marines were most unhappy because their buddies were all out fighting in the Pacific, and here they were up with a bunch of women trying to determine which was our left foot and our right foot. That we did real good. Even the Marine, after 4 weeks of training, admitted that we were pretty good.
Now, did you feel any kind of animosity from the Marine drill sergeants?
Not really.
Okay.
Except when we were drilling one time, we were on the football field, and it was a real pretty grass, and on the side was some tall weed. So he drilled us over, and when we got to the weeds, we all stopped dead. We weren't putting a foot in, but we got told about it.
Now, you brought up a point that I want to actually just ask a question about. Were the Waves created during the war, or were they in existence before the war?
No part of the war.
Okay.
War effort. I'm not sure exactly when, but it was part of the war effort.
So you did your basic training at Hunter College
For a
in New
month.
York. It was a month, and then where did you go from there?
Iowa State Teachers College for Yeoman School, which is, Yeoman is the same as a secretary.
Okay.
So that's the type of work I had been doing. So we learned how to do it the Navy way. And after 2 months there, I got my first rating of Yeoman 3rd class. And then I went to Great Lakes.
Okay. In between basic training and going to Iowa, did you get leave to come back
No.
to Cincinnati? So you went straight from New York to Iowa. And you were telling us beforehand you went on the train, And tell us about that experience. What was that like to go out from
Well,
that?
we didn't go directly from New York to Cedar Falls. We went up and down and around, which was part of the program for sending troops. You just didn't go direct. You made stops and changes.
A lot of small towns did you go through on that trip?
I don't remember.
Okay. That's
Nothing exciting anyway.
okay, nothing that stands out. Now here's a question I have. On the trains out, was it all female waves, or were there
They were
also
all-
men on the
all
ship?
waves.
Okay, so the whole bus, the whole trip.
All going to the same school.
Okay. And so then you made it out, and it took, you said, 2 days to get from New York
About
to Cedar Falls?
1.5 to 2 days. It just didn't. A couple times we just sat somewhere for a while till they opened, I guess, a route that we could go through.
And then in Cedar Falls, you were learning
It was
to do things the Navy
Navy
way,
way.
like you said. Could you explain a little bit about that? Do you remember any of the specific things that were the Navy way?
Well, we had certain, there are certain procedures, like setting up files, taking dictation, generally that type of thing.
And it was done differently than what the civilian world did?
Well, yes, to a certain,
Okay.
because every job is different too. When
Sure.
you go to a new job, you have to learn some. But there they send us to school. More military training too, marching, parading, and that sort of thing.
Now, did all the girls, women in the waves, basically do the same kind of stuff, or were there a wide range of jobs?
Very good. At Hunter College, before we were sent, we took tests to determine what fields we would be good in. And I came out with good grading for aviation machinist main, but
They didn't decide to put you in there?
I didn't decide I
Oh,
wanted it.
okay.
They left us choose. See, we were early enough that they had openings just about everywhere, so they were glad to get us.
What were some of the other kind of jobs that the other women did? Do you remember?
Well, control tower operators were one, and
Okay.
then bookkeepers. I'm not sure what their name, what their rating was.
You said aviation machinist.
Aviation machinist main.
That they would have worked in the actual machine shops and.
I would think they were you with the planes, getting them ready and
Okay.
solving their problems.
Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but it kind of piques my interest. The control tower operators, did they work at sort of like where the training was going on for Navy pilots, or?
I would think they worked both places, the training and then the actual flights in and out.
Okay. If someone was flying out, because you had mentioned this and I didn't know. You said that the waves were not allowed to leave the continental United States at first during the war, and then later on you were allowed to go as far as Hawaii, but
you had to sign up for it.
and
They
probably
couldn't just send us.
okay. So there was never a point where the waves were in combat or in any kind of near combat. So then you got transferred to Great Lakes in Chicago, just north of Chicago, Illinois. Tell us a little bit about what you did there and what that experience was like.
I was real lucky. As I said, being the 5th Regiment, there were a lot of openings. So I got to be a secretary. Now, some of them later on just got to be file clerks and that sort of thing. But I did get the job over in recruit training, and I was almost the only wave. There was a wave officer. I was the only enlisted wave in the department. And I was secretary to a lieutenant commander who was the head of the department. So I got to work with all of the people.
And recruit training was
Work
dealing with all the boys that were coming
with
in.
the boys that were coming in. They had to go, I'm not sure how long, it'd be a month or 6 weeks, I'm not sure, but they had spent in recruit training.
And so you dealt with all their paperwork and made sure they got to the right location and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And you worked under the lieutenant commander of the base, the whole base?
No,
Oh, okay.
the recruit training,
Okay.
lieutenant commander.
And were you in Great Lakes until the end of the war then?
I was discharged from Great Lakes.
I know you were talking earlier about just the sort of spirit of the country, and did you make it into Chicago at all during that
yes.
time?
We would go whenever for weekends because we were allowed that far. We could only go so many miles, but that was within the mileage that we could go. And the people in Chicago were just wonderful. Some would take people into their homes for dinner
Oh, really?
and spend time, and then the USO. Isn't that what I think that's what they call it?
The USO.
They had a large one there where they had rooms where we could stay overnight. They fed us just fed us. It was so good. And then they had a lot of entertainment too. A lot of famous people would come through there, and a lot of them would stop and visit, or they'd put on a show.
Did you get to see any famous people before?
And I can't remember who that.
Oh, you can't?
Well, we had them out at the base too.
Oh, really?
They came out there. We had large.
Did you notice at any time any kind of resistance toward women in uniform at first from the civilian population, or did you feel like you were accepted just like the boys in uniform?
I felt that way.
Okay. Because that was a sort of a new thing to see, I'm sure.
Yes. Of course, see, the Army had women a lot earlier than we. I think.
The wax?
The wax.
I don't know when they.
And the Coast Guard had theirs, had women, and then the Marines had women.
Oh, did they?
Now, the Marines were part of the Navy, so we had some Marine women.
Were they considered waves also?
No.
Or they were
And
called
I don't
something
know,
else?
they had a special name, I just know they were Marines. They wore different uniforms.
Okay.
You know.
But were there a lot of Marines at Great Lakes?
No.
Okay. They didn't really come through there.
They didn't come through there.
So you were there from 44 to 46?
I was there from about August of 43 until February of 46.
Oh, okay. And during that time period, your brother was also in the service.
Yes.
Was that something that you corresponded a lot with him during that
Yes.
time period, and you followed what was going on with
Yes.
him? So you had to be very nervous about the news reports that were coming in.
Well, as long as he was in the States, that was good. But then when he finally
He got shipped out.
then
When did he get shipped out?
when?
Yes.
I guess in 44,
And he went over to the Italian campaign.
he was in the invasion of southern Italy.
And this is something that you brought up. After the war was over in Europe, a lot of the guys that were in Europe were getting trained to go over and invade Japan. Was that the case with your brother? Did
Yes.
you think he was going to be?
Yes, he was he was wounded, and then he finally was brought back to the States, and he was in training to go to the Pacific area when the war was ended because of the surrender of Japan.
And I was going to ask, do you remember where you were when you heard that the bomb had been dropped on Hiroshima?
Mhm.
That's not a memory
I
that's
was
very
at
sad.
Great Lakes, but I don't know.
And you don't.
See, we didn't get immediate notices like you're doing today. You know, we didn't know the war in Europe was over at the minute it was over.
Oh, really?
It was quite a,
I know that.
I don't mean days, but I mean hours or
Sure.
morning, day, afternoon or something.
Sure. So you finished out your service at Great Lakes, and you stayed 6 months after the surrender of Japan. Is that how long you were there? And that was basically to. Now, did you deal with bringing guys back into and discharging? Was that something that you did in
No.
your unit after that? No.
No.
But you were still there were still a lot of guys coming into the Navy
I
after.
guess there were, I don't remember too much of those last 6 months.
Okay. You just knew you were going to get out.
Counting the days.
Yeah. Good. Just wanted to get home and see everybody. I'm sure after 3 years or so. So then you came back to Cincinnati after the war was over. And how long were you in Cincinnati before you moved
Left
on?
again, about 2 months.
About 2 months. And that's an interesting story you were telling us earlier. Tell me about what happened after the war. What you did. For the
Well, during the war, our recruit training program had a tie-in with the regular athletic department up at Great Lakes, and Paul Brown was quite active in that. In fact, he was ahead of that. And so he then, when his discharge came up, he was going to go over to the Cleveland Browns and start up the Cleveland Browns football team. And so his secretary wanted to go, and he wouldn't let her go alone if I wouldn't go, because he wanted the two of us there. That was back when you didn't take off, you know.
Sure.
He didn't want to be responsible for her up there alone, so then I went up there for a year and worked with the Cleveland Browns.
For their inaugural season?
Yeah. It was quite an interesting experience.
Got to go to the games.
Oh, yes. Got to meet the football players because they all were, they came in the offices there.
And so you were there for a year, and then what happened after that?
Went to Kroger's.
One came back and worked for Kroger.
I worked for Kroger's for 35 years.
Did you work in the downtown office?
No, on State Avenue and manufacturing,
Okay.
where we made a lot of the products. But I was in the laboratories, the research and laboratories departments.
Were you doing secretarial work there?
Yes.
Or? Okay.
Those were back in the days when secretaries were important because it was you had the screens.
Computers?
Pre-computer days, I couldn't even think of the word, pre-computer years. So, we had a lot of more responsibilities back then.
And you live do you live in Cheviot or what
I'm
part?
actually in Green Township.
Okay. And so you moved back into
I went back home.
the house that you were born in. Did you marry, have children?
No.
No? Okay. And you went back you had mentioned earlier, you went back to UC after.
Well, before I went in the Navy, I had started a program at UC. And then when I got out of the Navy gave us so many credits to go and complete, and it had to be finished by a certain date. So I was able to get enough credits in to get my associate degree in business administration thanks to the Navy.
You were not eligible for the GI Bill as the men were that came out? Or is this part of the GI Bill?
That's part of the GI Bill.
Okay, that's how the GI Bill worked?
Yeah, we got a lump sum of money too.
So that's good. I didn't know if they had extended the GI Bill to the women that served. So that's pretty much the story now. Is there anything else you can think of that you'd like to talk about during your service, or any stories?
Well, I was at Great Lakes. I did have a chance to board a submarine and go down and see all the crowded quarters down below.
Oh, yeah?
It was very interesting.
Did you actually get to go down, submerge into the lake there, or?
It was in the lake, but we didn't go out in the lake.
Okay.
It stayed stationary.
Those are very tight quarters on a submarine. I've been on a submarine, a World War II submarine. They're
Oh,
just getting through the doors, which of course aren't called doors. What are they called in the Navy? The portholes.
Portholes.
Yeah.
I was a Yeoman second class when I was discharged. I passed the test to become first class, but there were only a certain number of each rating allowed on the base.
Okay.
And there were no openings for
Oh, okay.
first class, so I didn't get to.
What about pay? That's something that I'm thinking about. Was it equal pay for women of equal rank for men? Okay.
But I can't remember what we were paid. It wasn't very much, I guess, but it took care of
Sure.
expenses.
Absolutely. Well, food
Well,
and
our
board was
food
taken care of.
board, yeah. For breakfast, we ate on across from our barracks where the men were eating, and you had to take everything. You know, they gave to you, and you had to eat it. And all of a sudden, the waves are all getting too fat. So then the medical department just came and said, well, you let them take what they want. They don't have to eat all that heavy food because they're not doing the type of work. So then we got to take what we wanted and how much we wanted.
Okay.
We didn't have to eat all that heavy food
So that was a rule though for the male sailors. They had to eat everything that they got,
up there.
or else
where
there
we
was.
Now, see, maybe you go up in the higher ranks where you get into more privileged chiefs and so forth. They could probably do a lot less,
Sure.
eat a lot less, but basically they ate what they got.
That's interesting. And they would be punished if they didn't eat what they got, or
I don't know what they
KP
did.
duty or something like that.
I would think they did KP, or if they went with dirty trays where you had to dump your tray.
Okay.
Also, a little comment about when I was at Hunter College, they didn't have women corpsmen. You know, they're like the nurses and all.
Right.
They're the ones that gave us the shots, so they brought the men in. Well, the women, when we went for our shots, they'd go big knot would go, and they couldn't believe this. Nobody fainted or passed out. They were used to the men.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's what the corpsman said.
That's what the men.
You guys were tougher than they were.
Yeah, that didn't bother us. Of course, I guess over the years, But that was interesting. So that's about all comments I have right now.
Okay. Well, we thank you for coming out and being part of this project, and thank you for your service to our country. And it was really a pleasure meeting you. I think that what the women did during World War II was something that had a huge effect on women in the post-war period, and I think you really were pioneers, and really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.